I'm super, super excited today to have a wonderful, wonderful guest. In the short interaction so far that I've had with him, he's already become a very, very dear friend and someone who I looked up to, continue to going to look up to throughout the rest of my life, and continue to build this incredible, incredible relationship. Tony is the founder of a phenomenal company called Oyster. And before Oyster, he founded another company. But today we're here not to only talk about the incredible companies that he built, the company that he sold for $230 million, the $50+ million he raised. It's not about that. It's about the man who Tony is today, the journey that he took to get him to where he is today, and all the lessons learned along the way so we can apply that for our own life. So, Tony, I am super grateful. So, thank you so much for joining us over here.
Thank you, Ephraim, for having me on the show. I'm very excited to have this conversation with you today.
So, Tony, one thing I realized, you're welcome, first of all, and it's an absolute honor. One thing every story obviously has a backstory. Like we spoke about before, it's not about the man who you are today, and looking at you like, oh my gosh, like how is he like this today? It's like you have a whole journey beforehand. But there's one thing into something that I've been able to recognize so far from our brief interaction, and it really touched me like emotionally too, is your humility. You have such humility that is absolutely like incredible. Not just humility, but also your active listening, constantly listening. And I know I'm just a kid from Brooklyn that reached out to you, this and that, and like, why do they? Like, you're like, sure, let's do it. Why not? And like, even you're listening to me as we're talking about the future of work. You're actively listening, but your humility over there is just absolutely. Talk to me about that. Talk to me about your upbringing. Where does such humility come from? And obviously, yeah, I'm sure your parents had a lot to do with it, your upbringing and everything else around there. So why don't we jump right into that aspect of there?
Yeah, sure, sure. So I was I was born in Lebanon in exactly in 1980, and that was for like I would say a normal kind of Lebanese family living in a normal Lebanese village. But what was not normal in my experience growing up was that the first 10 years of my life, the country was in a civil war, and it was one of the most deadliest civil wars in history. And to me, was it was I normalized that, right? So it's like everything I know was this constant threat to people's life, and as I was kind of growing up, I had to kind of integrate that, and as I kind of moved to, I had the opportunity when I was 17 to move to France. I was very fortunate to have been selected in my school to move to go to France at 17 and study computer science, and and that got me plugged into the kind of the Western world economies and society, and I had this unique opportunity to kind of grow with that opportunity. Yeah, and that's kind of the first, I would say, 20 25 years of my life was really about kind of leaving the situation I was put in when I was young, and kind of accessing that opportunity that we in the West kind of have access to.
Right. Yeah. And I'm sure, like, having able to receive such an opportunity, because I'm sure a lot of people unfortunately did not have such an opportunity. Maybe like you come from a place like Lebanon where you have the whole civil war. You end up in France, going to business school. You're able to appreciate it much more. Like I'm sure even in your life today, growing up with such a things, the little things you probably appreciate on a much more different type of basis. The gratitude is such an important thing. I mean, your gratitude is probably much more than everything else. Like, how has that shaped your life growing up in a place like that?
Well, it kind of shaped my whole life. I mean, there are certain I would say um, negative aspect of influence where you really kind of have to deal with that trauma and do a lot of self work and self discovery to be able to get to a place of appreciating what you have, and to be able to connect with the world and others in a way that is more healthy. And at the same time, when you think about the application of that in business, the first thing is really around your ability to deal with risks. Essentially, when your nervous system is wired to see risk everywhere, unfortunately, that's actually very good skills in business,
Mm-hmm.
because you're able to kind of forecast the 2 or 3 years ahead and see, okay, well, there's the 50 different risks that we have to take care about today. And obviously, most of them will not materialize, but essentially it pushes you as a business leader or as a leader of an organization to think ahead,
Yeah.
and have a vision of the future that is about minimizing that risk.
Mm.
I think that's kind of one of the major, I would say, learning from that experience. And the other one is resilience, because what enabled me to really do is when I see a challenge, is really doubling down on that challenge, and that's what I call resilience. Is when you're the bigger the challenge is, the bigger your determination to really solve that challenge. And maybe one of the third area that kind of this experience shaped me is ability to be in these two worlds simultaneously. From one hand, the world we live in today, the rich world where everything is somehow serene, and we think about what's the next house we're going to buy and the next car we want to buy, and but at the same time also kind of understanding that there's another world out there where it's risky, and people are kind of still very down below the Maslow pyramid of needs, and having this kind of duality of experience enabled me to really appreciate more what I have, and these are the kind of basic things, things like your family, your children, your body, the kind of basic things that we need as a human being, and the society we live in try to confuse us a bit, right? Because the more we're confused about these kind of basic things in our life, well, the more we're actually better consumers.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of I think this experience now. I'm 40 years old. Kind of, I can see this kind of duality, and that in the world that we live in, and actually that kind of led me also to do what I do today with Oyster, where we essentially lower the barriers to cross-border employment so that anybody in the world can have access to a great career no matter where they live, and not be subject to this lottery system, which is where we are born, kind of determine everything else in our life.
Wow. So then how do you keep yourself grounded? I mean, obviously you mentioned these things in growing up, how that affected you, but at the same time, you have experienced the other side of the world. You have experienced that success. You have experienced what it means to be on the front, having your page on the front cover of a magazine, for example. Being able to sell a company, being a future all around, but keeping yourself grounded in such a way that, like, being able to really appreciate the basic necessities in life because growing up in that place. But now you're on the other side. How do you keep yourself grounded?
I think first, it's very challenging to keep myself grounded. It's like a work in progress, continuous work in progress. And what I use as techniques to keep myself grounded is things that many people use, such as meditation, continuous curiosity about what's happening in the world, and what's happening within me, and why I'm having these feelings, and kind of reflect on that, and also very fortunate to have people around me that can help me along that journey. It's a journey that it's really hard to do it on your own. So having that feedback loop, and having people around you that are able to give you that feedback is priceless.
Right. I think, Tony, if you ever decide to drop the entrepreneurial career, you should go into, become a psychologist, or, a coach or something like that. You'll be very good.
Well, actually, on that, I think the job of a psychologist and the job of a leader today are getting closer
Yeah.
and closer, because 50% of the world population now has some mental health issue with what's happening in the world, and especially as you're building a company, working with people from around the world that are spread in, and you cannot meet them in person. Well, you have to really double down on listening to your team, and you cannot just send a survey, right? You have to be there for them. You have to see them. They have to be seen, and then you have to also yourself to be to open up and be vulnerable about your challenges, so that they can also feel comfortable. So they can have emotional safety to also open up.
Right.
And that's part of being a leader, leading a high performance team. Now these two jobs are kind of coming together, in my opinion.
No, for sure. So then how do you go about building an incredible team like that that's able to express real vulnerability? Like you mentioned, you obviously have a dispersed workforce. In the sense you have people working in every corner of the earth. And so it's very difficult when, obviously everything's remote, it's not in person. But I guess let's take it a step back, expressing real vulnerability. What you mentioned before, you mentioned three incredible points and where today and what an entrepreneur needs and what we need in life. Resiliency, being able to assess risk, and being able to express gratitude for the minor details in life. And that's something we could touch upon and go into a whole long thing about how you're able to build up a mental model that's able to run away from the flight or risk type of thing we always have in our mind, but we could touch on later. But right now, let's talk about vulnerability. Being able to express true vulnerability. As a leader, sometimes a CEO, yes, 100% being able to express vulnerability is the most important thing because your teammates should know really what's going on. But most times we run away from expressing vulnerability because of discomfort. And also because like a lot from not just from a human aspect, which is the discomfort part, but as a leader, sometimes we don't want to let our teammates know that there's only X amount of money left in the bank. Oh, this deal didn't go through, or this is what's happening. How do you get that place to share real vulnerability? And also explain the benefits of doing it with your team too.
Yeah. So I think this is where you have to pick wisely what do you share and what you don't share, because at the end of the day, your goal as a leader is to help others. Right. So if you overshare or you share things that actually will put them in a stressful situation and will increase their anxiety levels, that's not something that is wise to share. However, if you share things that are giving them the ability to come and help you and be listening to you, I think this just as a fundamentally, if just you put them in a state where they are listening, then you've achieved the goal of I would say showing the example that next time they will share, you're going to listen to them, right? And it's not like you cannot do it. It's not like the first meeting you have with your team you just share. You have to also build that over time. It's like a bank account. You have to put in money first in order to get dividend. Yeah. So once if the first time they share with you, you have to drop everything and be there, present for them and listening for them. Right. And you build that over time, like a bank account.
Yeah, for sure. It's funny you mentioned that because actually having a conversation with somebody recently that self-confidence is like an ATM machine too. How do you build up self-confidence? Through doing esteemable acts of action, right? So a lot of times self-confidence, you're constantly depositing. And then one day you turn around and you do an action that you were afraid of beforehand. And like, wait, how did I do that? And you start realizing you're starting to withdraw from that. So that's such an incredible thing over there. Wow. I mean, I'm just like, there's so many different incredible things. What shaped your worldview currently right now? Because you have these things about real emotional health, really taking care of the people, really expressing vulnerability, not being afraid to have that. What shaped your worldview, and how do you what's your daily, your daily work that you put into yourself, or your general regimen of taking self-care to grow mentally, intellectually, emotionally, and everything?
I think it's really about, it's really about being clear about what you want to achieve in 10 years from now, like having a 10 years goals around things you want to achieve in this world and why, and also as importantly how you want to achieve them, which is get me to the values, what kind of value system you have, and then make sure that these things are always work in progress, whether your 10 years goals or your values are all kind of being shaped by your experience as a human being. And for me personally is like, I got to a point when I sold my company mid 2016. I stayed a couple of years in the business, and we worked on increasing the valuation of the business. And then I left after 2 years when I had a lockup period. I took some time off, and I had this unique opportunity to reflect on why I'm here, and what I'm going to be doing in my life and why. And what I realized is that, I have this skill that was fortunate to have, which is building high growth software businesses. And at the same time, I was kind of scanning the world for opportunities where I can put that skill in use in a way that is aligned with my values and how I want to see the world in 10 years from now. And inequality has been an important theme in my life, coming up from a very kind of poor family and from a country that is, you know, as we see today, is at the verge of collapse. And I was, you know, very impacted by seeing that it's not only a Lebanese problem, it's a world problem. Like 80% of the world population lives today in countries where there's corrupt governance, there is very weak economies, there is, you know, think about very weak currencies. I mean, we're on a verge of a kind of a global currency collapse in many emerging economies. I think about what's happening in Latin America, for instance. I was in Turkey as an example. And this is really this is really the result of decades of corrupt leadership, and I really want to make few small steps towards changing that, and this is how kind of Oyster came to life, is this alignment between my value system and my skill set. How can we combine these two together? And by the way, this is like the only thing that kind of motivate me today to wake up in the morning and do the work I do, is this alignment between what I'm good at and how I want the world to change.
I wish everyone could feel the emotions that I'm feeling right now and the energy I'm feeling right now from the way you're talking and the passion you're talking about changing the world. And it's nothing to do with Oyster. It's really nothing to do with Oyster. It's about your values and your mission, which happens to translate through Oyster to accomplish that. But it has nothing.
Yeah, and that's what I'm recommending. Like, everybody can do that, right? It's not like, you know, only the skill set of the elite, right? It's like it's really something that everybody can do. This alignment between their skill set, what they're good at, and how they want the world to change. And that could be in many different sectors, in many different industries, in many different type of roles, type of jobs. I mean, this is something that everybody is accessible to everybody.
Yeah, 100%. But it's a matter of doing that work. So talk to me, like, you know, what is your framework for this? So, like, for example, someone else wanted to apply this to their own life, or someone is going through a difficult time right now saying, hey, my job right now is not giving me the fulfillment, or my life is not giving me the fulfillment that I want. How can I sit down, create my values, and align my next step based off that?
I think the first step is, at least for me, like my first step was having this ability to have some bandwidth in my mind to think about these things. So and you know, what helped me was you know, taking this year off between my two jobs. And I know I'm fortunate to have that ability, but anybody can dedicate 5 minutes in a day to really think about that. Right. And really clarify where they want to go in 10 years and why. And also the other and that's not enough. So the what is not enough, is also the how, and the how is in which ways I'm going to do this. You know, what I'm going. For instance, for me, it was important that I do it with you know, focusing on the others. You know, how can I be at the service of others? That was part of one of my values, and I wanted to kind of develop and grow. So everyone will have a different kind of value system, and also there's a kind of a process about developing that value system, and it's primarily about creating that gap in your mind to observe yourself and say, okay, I'm doing this today this way. Why I've picked unconsciously that I want to do it in that way, and reflect on that, and see, does it make sense? Does it make sense? Maybe you want to change some of your value system, and the value system is a continuous change. It's something that it's like every moment in your life is really influencing your value system, and it's like your identity. And it's an evolving thing. It's not like set in stone. It's great to think about it as a moving as a moving target,
Mm-hmm.
so that you continue changing it and evolving it and improving it.
Yeah, as our life progresses, we go through so many different types of situations, and like, we become different people. We have different, the same way how we're different types of people to different types of people. Like we have each scenario, situation we're in, we're always like a different type of character. Our life constantly evolves. Not our value system will evolve too also. And like you touched upon such an interesting point over there, saying that no, in life, most times, for example, you didn't actually touch upon, but it's like most times, things always fall out in the middle. They're always not as good as they are, and they're always not as bad as they are. They always fall out in
Yes.
the middle line, and that's where most situations happen. So also even our personal selves, so we think we're better than we actually are, and then we think we're worse than we actually are. But we always fall in the middle, and everything in that aspect over there. So aligning your values, and you know making sure that they're not set in stone, and you're always able to grow, and you're always going to evolve. And like you said, you're going to grow, from 5 years ago to your value systems to now. How many? I can only imagine how many changes you made or things you learned about yourself, and you grew in that end over there.
Yeah, and also I think one of the aspect that I kind of realize is that we grow up in societies, and these societies shape the way we see the world, and uh, and but actually, if you think about like a newborn, they are born without any influence. Okay, so if you want, one of the techniques is how do you let go about this unconscious bias
Right.
that we have. And obviously it's a continuous process. You cannot get rid of everything, but if you remove this kind of view that's been programmed into you by society and the world you live in, then you start getting closer to that sense of, I would say, that kind of emotional flexibility, right?
Right.
That enables you to maybe put yourself in the shoes of another person, or it enables you to really recenter you to what's really important in life, right? Yeah, I mean, like, think about it. 5,000 years ago, when there was no concept of countries,
Mm-hmm.
when we were born, we were not very different. We were
Yeah.
not very different physically, and from the people who were born 5,000 years ago. What changed today is this kind of accumulation
Sure.
of progress that we've made, and we created this concept of countries, and we created this concept of monetary system, and then all these things came and kind of shaped the way we are today.
Right.
And making conscious step to go back to that initial state that we were supposed to be is very liberating, and it's very hard to do, but actually for me it has helped me really to kind of clarify these goals and these values, and make them kind of independent from the societies that we are in. I mean, being Lebanese is easy because like I cannot be today very proud of my country because it's becoming a collapsed country, right? I mean, it's actually, but it's something that is helpful in that process.
Yeah. And I can see naturally you're an old soul. When I mean by old soul, I mean like you mentioned, like 5,000 years ago, where if you had the opportunity to go to appreciate, which is you appreciate simplicity for the sake of simplicity. And you realize that it's not about the accumulation, because stuff don't buy us happiness. Yeah, okay, for the fleeting moment, it makes us look good, it makes us ourselves look good, but like it's not about that. And you have that type of degree, which is amazing. And you touched upon such an incredible thing also. As a baby, babies are not born to hate. They're not born
No,
to know in groups, out groups. We're born to love, right? We're born to
exactly.
the we society, a loving society, a place where we all feel inclusive, we're all together, and everything like that. But you mentioned the unconscious bias that goes up as we grow older, you know, and like you said, taking the conscious effort and step by step basis to get rid of that unconscious bias and whatever it is, to realize that we're all in this role together to really make a difference. How can I help you? How can you help me? How can we make a bigger impact? How can we create, it's an intergroup, interconnected, not independent, but interconnected. is the most important thing. Wow, Tony, just wow. I'm like,
Exactly, and I just want to add to what you just said, which is kind of the this kind of initial state that we were born in, and suddenly we're kind of programmed to kind of be part of this society or this country or this nationality or whatever, and that shapes our worldview. Is I wanted to say that yeah, these there is some societal benefit from that. If you think about kind of the macroeconomical system we live in, like we're addicted to consumption.
right.
I mean, if the GDP doesn't grow by the global GDP doesn't grow by like X% every year, it's like a global meltdown of the global system, and what just happened now last year and happened in 2010 and or 2008, so we are like addicted to that kind of system, and that system has an interest in keeping us disconnected from each other and keeping us disconnected from ourselves and the world and the environment we live in. Because if we if the more we are disconnected, the more we feel that there's some sort of gap in us that actually we want to go and fulfill with buying stuff. And and you know, marketing has a big role to play in that. Like, you know, why do you want to buy this next new car, or why do you want to move to this bigger house? And so marketing is here playing a role that is I mean, I don't want to kind of say, you know, I don't want to go all against marketing, but there's some of the marketing techniques that some businesses use to get us to consume more. Like, I think, like, think about food. I think we eat 2 times more in say in the West world than we should eat in terms of our body needs. But then you have people like still not able to put food on the table today. Like, how do you kind of make sense of that, right? I mean,
I think it's such a funny thing you mentioned. You know, when we accumulate cars, we accumulate houses. You know, we think, you know, for example, like it's going to make us feel better, make us feel good, or people can look at us, but we totally forget to realize that, you know, remember, think about the last time you saw a Ferrari on the street. How many times do you actually look at the person who's inside the Ferrari and just look at the Ferrari like, wow, that's a nice car? No one ever said, oh, wow, that's a nice person. Or the house. No one's like, wait, I wonder who's a nice person lives inside this house? No, it's like, wow, that house is magnificent. Has nothing to do with the people, but the people that accumulate that think they're thinking it's going to bring me more happiness. Thinking it's going to be more respect. Realizing that as outsiders, they're not looking at that. But I want to make a 360 around, because, you know, at the end of the day, we do have to touch upon, you know, as much as I want to talk about life and love,
yes,
and philosophy, which is the most important thing aspect, because, you know, like we said before the conversation, work is just what we do. It's not who we are. You know, we're here in this role to actually make a difference personally and to grow. But, you know, you as a second-time founder, you know, having the opportunity to build a credible company previously, raised a nice amount of money, then sold it, and then you started your second company based upon your values that really give you the ability to make a real impact and difference. And you've already raised an incredible amount of money, you know, a seed round of 4 million, then additional round of 20 million. Do the challenges get easier as a second-time entrepreneur?
Some do get easier, but not all. So what gets easier is your ability to essentially deal with the challenge. So let's say in my first experience, I would quickly burn out. I would quickly let's say snap on my team when I'm feeling stressed by the challenge. So here the stress remains, and the challenge is probably even bigger than before. But your ability to do that another time, it kind of give you that competitive advantage where you are, I would say, weathering the storm in a way that doesn't break the ship.
Right. So then, like, let's touch upon like your first time you went through entrepreneurship, your first challenges, where, you know, you said the stress was a place where you weren't sure how to manage it yet, or, you know, every crisis was a massive crisis, a world crisis. You know,
Exactly.
so tell me about like times that you really felt like the ship was going to break and sink, and you're like, you know what, that's it, I'm done, I give up. You know, so tell me about those early times, which obviously happened in your first entrepreneur stint. And, you know, a friend of mine told me interestingly that Entrepreneurship is a career. You have to view it as a career. It's not something that, it's not a job, it's a career. So talk about like when you thought like all hell is breaking loose, and then how you pull through such situations.
Yeah. So on many occasions, take for instance fundraising. Okay, fundraising is one of the most stressful events of a company's history, especially in the early stages of a business. And it's you will get like 90% rejection up front from investor, especially if you're a first time entrepreneur. And you know that if you don't fundraise, you're gonna have to shut the business down, and that's like the most difficult part of, I think, for being an entrepreneur, is that how do you accept the fact that you're gonna get rejected while staying positive and staying calm in that situation. And I remember when we were raising money in my previous company, and we've had that situation. I couldn't sleep. I had to kind of wake up at 4 a.m. in the morning and write down a plan about a plan B, that if we don't raise, it's going to be okay.
Right.
And this is the plan. And it's really when I did that, I was able to reduce my stress level. And the next phase of fundraising, I was calmer. I was able to be skillful. I was able to give my best, and eventually we were able to fundraise. But that experience of going through that binary event,
Sure.
yes or no, is really kind of was super challenging.
Wow, I can only imagine. I think, as an entrepreneur myself and other entrepreneurs, going through that challenge is real. And I loved you said, like, when you put it down on paper, actually gave you clear step actions. When it's living in your head, it's like it's in your head, you're dealing with it, you're dealing with it in your shoulders, you're stressed everywhere. But like,
Exactly.
so like, how do you deal with stress on a daily basis? And how do you control your stress? And how do you use stress? How do you use your stress also as a way to grow?
Yeah. So as you mentioned earlier, I think the your body is like a sensor of
Right.
stress, right? So first you have to develop this ability to listen to your body. Where are the tension? Like for me, it's in my belly, in my jaw, in my shoulders, and and uh, and so really kind of listening to your body. And when these kind of I would say alarms are being raised in your body, is you want to do something about it. You want to breathe it through. You want to kind of let it go. You want to reflect on it, maybe at the end of the day. And one thing that actually I'm applying right now at Oyster with my team is I will work really hard during the week, but then Friday I don't take any meetings, because that enables me to catch up on everything that happened this week, clean up my inbox, and then that prepares me to really disconnect during the weekend.
Yeah.
Like I don't send emails over the weekend. I don't send any Slack messages. If somebody send me something, I don't respond to make sure I also set the example for my team that I don't expect them to be working over the weekend, or to be working at hours that they don't want to work at. So and that's been kind of a successful attempt so far, to kind of go back into the weekend and recharge the energy, the drain energy that you've had in the week, and then come back the next day kind of refreshed. And it doesn't work all the time, but
Yeah.
it's kind of work in progress. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's such an important thing. Tony, you should use your podium to spread that message, because in the States and especially around the world, if you look at who the heroes are today or people look up to, is Elon Musk, is Zuckerberg's, so you're looking at the Google founders earlier, is Gary Vaynerchuk, all these types of people that really evangelize the whole thing of hustle porn, startup porn. Go the 24 hours, to sleep the 4 hours and everything like that. Don't, if you don't work during the weekend, you're not going to build that up. And you being able to talk about that and express that with your team and even other entrepreneurs, speed is obviously, yes, you have to work hard, no question. You have to put in, speed is very important. But take the necessary time for yourself. That's so, so important, that aspect over there, taking care of emotional health. So then, like, you'll probably get approached constantly all the time then, from new entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs that are in their early stages, in general. So what message do you tell people just starting in their entrepreneurship journey right now?
As we touched before in the podcasting, first is align what you do with what you believe in. Okay, so you have to have that exploration process, and then you have to envision how the world you want to be, and then do something that you believe in, and then is in line with your skill set. Number two is timing, right? Timing is everything in success. I believe that, and you want to be building something that is timely to what the world needs right now, and understand the trends. So for Oyster, work from anywhere trend is an important example that's kind of fueling the business. But even at Nexmo, my previous company, we did an API business for communication technology 10 years ago, and that was the programmability of software was kind of starting to be an important trend. So align what you do with what you believe in, time it well, and I would say the third advice is around try to understand what you need and where your weaknesses are, and surround yourself with people that can help you fill that need. Like you want to really understand that it's not going to be only you that's going to deliver the result. You cannot go very far on your own, and you're not going to be able to build a strong team around you if you don't enable these teams to give their best, and kind of thinking about how you want to kind of form that team based on what the business needs first and foremost, but also what you need in terms of complementarity of skills.
Sure. I think learning, your strengths, and I think you're a prime example of that. From my understanding, you obviously went to France for study computer science, but then you realize you won't be the best computer science person, so you might have to pivot into business and sales. And then obviously, as you grew up older, it's like, you surround yourself with incredible people. They're able to complement the places that you lack in, and everything. Well, so as you've been rated obviously as a top 25 angel investor in London, other places, somehow, but it's obviously incredible. But so what do you look for in an entrepreneur, in investors, when you're evaluating situations in startups and entrepreneurs themselves?
I think we can talk about like how we look at opportunities to invest in, and we look at things like size of the market, the solution, and how fast it can grow, whether it can reach a certain can we envision a scenario that is not zero probability where this business can become really, really big. But for me, like the biggest I would say test for an entrepreneur is their ability to be coached. Are they open to receive feedback? Are they flexible to change and pivot, and this is thing like listening skills, ability to how they react to feedback. So I think this for me is a number one indicator of success.
Right. Over there. So how do you build, I'm sure most times when people are receiving feedback, the first time, it's never like a grateful experience. But they obviously have to know that feedback is the ability in order to grow. I saw a prime example, I'm not sure where I saw it, that feedback is like an onion. When you're cutting an onion, you start crying the first time. And then when you start peeling away, then you put it in the water, start softening it up, able to taste delicious afterwards. Same exact process of feedback over there in that end.
Great image, Ephraim. I love it.
So looking back, not looking back, but touch on what non-obvious habits, you obviously are an incredible human being, a ton of humility, able to express vulnerability, connecting with people, really people building up. It's not about, how can I accumulate, but it's more about what can I give. What non-obvious habits have made you better to become the person who you are today?
I think I'm going to talk about something that's a bit maybe unusual here, like from a habit forming standpoint, is this ability to lose the sense of time, and because like if you really want to operate in a calm, serene way, and be skillful in your ability to grow a business really, really fast with tons of challenges on a daily basis, you want to protect yourself from that kind of negative emotion that will throw your balance out, whether it's you worry about the future, or I might worry about, hey, what I'm saying on the Ifram podcast today is, like it's not a great thing. This evening I'm going to think about that. But no, but essentially, if you start, like I started developing this ability to just forget about time, and that as if time doesn't exist in my life. Well, from one hand, I kind of lose some of these abilities to operate in society. I have a board meeting at the end of the month, so I need to start preparing for it now, and I need to worry about it. But at the same time, it creates a protection layer that enables me to operate at my best at every moment of the day. And again, I'm lucky to be surrounded by people who actually really manage time very, very well. So I think that's something that I've recently developed, and I'm really excited about the impact on my performance and my well-being.
Sure. And if I'm not mistaken, this is one of your 2021 goals. In order to be time management, to be in the present. Not worry about the future, which leads to resentments because it has expectations and it leads to resentment. But not worrying about the past because the past is the past. But being time management is
exactly. You've been researching my LinkedIn post recently. I've noticed.
I could give you more information.
What do you know about me that I don't know yet?
I know a lot. So a lot of times, for example, it's not, when we go after 180 years, give you a prime example. I know your sister, just graduated from school currently over there, your alma mater, and she asked, one of the questions was like, how are you going to look up to Tony and fill Tony's shoes up, right? And a lot of times we have to know that it's not about how can we fill someone else's shoes, but how can we fill our own shoes. And as a lot of people are going to say, like, how can I be like Tony? But when we die, when we go up to heaven, wherever it is, they're not going to ask Ephraim, how can we weren't like Tony? They're going to ask Ephraim, why weren't you like Ephraim? Tony, why weren't you more like Tony? What do you tell somebody that because like I said, we spoke about earlier, it's a 25, 30-year journey. I mean, by you, it's a 41-year journey. By me, it's a 30-year journey. What do you tell people that are constantly looking up to you saying, hey, I want to be like him? How do we tell them, like, follow your own direction, follow your own path? What do we tell them?
Well, I think it's actually I think it's important to learn from others what worked well for them and what didn't. I think there's we as a species are very good in kind of sharing knowledge, and that's actually is getting even better now with the internet. You can think about this, this podcast will be there for forever for until the end of time, right? So that's great, kind of to learn and be inspired by others, but at the same time, it's your own journey, right? And what you're bringing to this world is this unique view that you've developed, and so it's also as important to be aware of that and design your own path forward.
Right. Yeah, and that's totally true. And they say hindsight's 2020. So looking back at a 17-year-old Tony leaving Beirut to explore the world, and then he obviously has multiple opportunities in front of him. He could come back to Beirut. He could end up as a barista in a cafe in Paris, somewhere over there, small little cafe, or he can go ahead and start this incredible tech company in London and everywhere else. What message do we tell him as he's facing the world, the massive huge world for the first time? And
the message is really think about how you want to spend your time on this earth, right? Like, how can you be the most impactful possible, whatever that means to you,
right?
And if it's producing the best and delivering the best coffee to customers, and that's it. So there's nothing wrong with that. I think it's really about asking yourself the question, if I'll die the next second, am I okay with everything I'm doing and the way I'm doing it in this world? And that's like a continuous kind of process. You can develop that kind of muscle in your brain to ask yourself the question at every time of your day. Is it, if I die now, am I going to regret anything? Am I going to be okay? And if it's and everyone will have a different answer.
Right. Totally. Tony, I know there's gonna have to be a round two because there's so many things we didn't touch upon, but I personally have learned so much from this. So many different things. The first thing is being true to yourself, following your gut, your heart, aligning yourself with your values, your decisions, your values. And like you said, operating from there, so you have your framework of mind, your value system, everything else is so much easier place, you know, being true to yourself, staying present with the time, whatever it is you're doing, if you, like you mentioned, like a barista, be totally in love with it, become the best at that, and don't think in the eye, like how can I benefit or what can I accumulate, but how can I give that be there for others? And how can I make the world a better place? Thank you. This is like, thank you, thank you. I'm so grateful. And there's no doubt in my mind that so many people are going to benefit from listening to this for their entrepreneurial career, for their personal lives, for growth, whatever they're holding. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Ephraim, for giving me the opportunity to be on your podcast.